so I think the best place to start there is to talk about like I think that the most exciting thing for the kind of narrative of this fight is just the whole cross promotion aspect to it. Like, what was your reaction to getting this fight come across your table and getting the opportunity to go out there and fight in Japan?
It was yes, yes, and yes. That's that's what I felt. It was I couldn't have asked for a fight so soon and having it be a top three opponent and then also having it be in Japan. I'm like, that's yes all across the board. Like, why not?
Yeah, did you expect this like at all?
Um, no, no. Honestly, this is like the fastest turnaround I've ever done. Which is also kind of works in my favor too, of just kind of keeping my weight lower. So I'm like, I'm healthy. I was really surprised actually, to be honest with you. My manager called me and usually he'll call me just to say hi or to check in. He's like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. And I was like, okay. And he's like, what about fighting in July? I'm like, oh, whoa, this is soon. Okay. Like, why not?
How is
So
that like with having the like you said the fastest turnaround you ever had? How is that with preparing to go and fight in Japan? Like, does has that added a lot of I suppose differences compared to previous training camps? Not only the turnaround, but having to prepare to fly across the world to go compete in Japan.
right. I've never I'm trying to think the farthest I've ever been was Hawaii. And I
Right.
feel like I adapted well. But Japan's totally different because the hours are different. Like I got off an interview with the gentleman earlier, and it was like 5 in the morning over there, and it's
Right.
2 o'clock here. So, um, I feel like I do really well at adapting to my environment. So my goal is to go out there and to adapt to the time change as soon as possible. Try to greet the sun right when it comes up, say goodnight to the moon, try to really connect with the environment so then I can be really, really secured of, okay, I'm in Japan now. Because the fighting part I know how to do, but I think the time difference, it might make a difference, it might not, but I'm gonna try to do my best to prepare.
Yeah, I guess the other like aspect of this, which is very different to any other the fight. But I mean, you've experienced before with going into a fighter's backyard and kind of playing the away side, I guess. But I would imagine that Japan is a completely different experience of doing that to doing it anywhere else in the world, right? The crowd are usually a lot more quiet and respectful. You're not expecting them to be hostile or anything like that. Like what do you expect from fighting a hometown fighter, I guess. Like you're, like I said, you've experienced before, but like what are you expecting from Japan?
Um, from my understanding, I've heard that fighting in Japan, it's just a different type of culture. They understand martial arts really well. Oh, excuse me, really well. And so I and my brother's fought in Japan before. My brother actually introduced me to martial arts. He's fought in
Right.
Japan before, and Coach Jesse Brock, he's also fought in Japan before. And they told me that it's going to probably be really quiet.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, really? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, that's okay because I've experienced that before when I fought during COVID. There was no crowd, and I did really well. So I don't think the crowd really plays too much of a part, but it's also fun to have a crowd that cheers. So I don't know. I'm just excited to compete.
Yeah, I mean, that one of my questions was going to be, have you had a chance to speak to anyone who's already gone and done it? But having a brother that's gone and done it, I mean, that's as good as you can get for
Right, right,
getting someone's
right.
experiences, right?
Yeah, and that's the feedback they told me. They're like, it's really quiet, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, that'll probably work in my favor because that means I can hear my coaches really good and really clear. So
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, I guess. Like you said, I've never really thought about it in the when there was no crowds during COVID, it kind of gave people that experience because for your opponent Watanabe, I'm sure that's where she feels at home. But now that you've experienced it as well, I guess like how did you feel doing that? Because I know for some fighters it was quite like some of them felt like it helped, and then others kind of complained that it felt too much like a training session, like a
Mhm.
spar rather than an actual fight. But how did you find that when you had to do it?
I felt like it reminded me on why I do it.
Right.
Sometimes I think when you get like, I don't know, like the lights, the interviews, all of that, I think it's easy to get distracted on why you started. And to me, it just humbles me on why I started. And I felt very focused and very clear when I fought with, because I'm like, why am I here? And it's like, well, because I want to be here. So I'm excited to go out there and even have like, if it's quiet or not quiet. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Japan, but now also compete in Japan. It holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, for sure that makes sense. One that kind of on one of the things you mentioned then, with the experience that you have now. One of the narratives that I saw written for this fight was about you and feeling like you're entering a second prime in your career, which I think is quite an interesting thing that kind of gets debated still in MMA because we don't really know where prime is for MMA
Mhm.
fighters. But like, what do you accredit that to? I assume it's from the experience that you've been able to gain, and so you feel like that gives you an extra edge compared to previous fights.
Yes, yes. I feel like I'm getting better every day. I feel like I'm getting better at practices. I'm getting better with fights. I'm getting better with me, getting to know me on how handling situations in the fight and also outside of the fight camp. So I feel like I'm really confident and secure with who I am. And I want another title shot, but I also know what I need to do to get there. And so I'm excited to compete. I know the rankings don't matter too much, but at the same time they do matter. So it's like, okay, well let's go do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you are going to put stock into the rankings, then go into Japan to beat the number three ranked competitor. I feel like is a pretty good, the best way to climb right to the top. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for your time and all the best for the
Yes,
fight.
thank you. I appreciate it.